friends, thanks for joining me today. This is my July monthly wrap-up, and this month, July, marked the first month that a bunch of my friends and I started a local book club. So this first book that I read in July was that month's pick, and it was called Definitely Maybe by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. This was translated from Russian to English, and it's about a man named Dmitri who finds himself constantly being interrupted in his work by random, just unexpected things, phone calls, visits, to the point where it seems like there's actually some force purposefully putting obstacles in the way of him completing his work. And it's about him and some of his colleagues trying to figure out the nature of this phenomenon and how they're supposed to overcome it. And I gave this a 2.5 star. This is categorized everywhere as sci-fi, but to me, it felt more like speculative fiction with, like, I don't know, hand-wavy weirdness, I guess. This originally came out in the 70s, and it's a critique on Soviet censorship and oppression, and in that way, like, this did the job. I definitely get it, but the personal enjoyment just wasn't there for me with this. The flow was chaotic. Like, from one sentence or paragraph to another, it was just full of what felt like non sequiturs. It was at times like barely readable for me. I didn't connect with anyone or anything happening, and I've read older books, like, published, like 50 years ago, and they're more readable than this was to me. And maybe the fact that this was translated might have gotten in the way of just the readability at times, personally. And this was really more kind of character focused, just like following trains of thought rather than like following a plot. And I'm usually not a big fan of super introspective stories. The ending was ambiguous, which I don't generally prefer. And like, we all had a great discussion. This was like an awesome first book. Everyone just kind of had their own take on things and their own questions, and we all had a great time discussing it. It was awesome. But the book, just for me, it lacked a lot of things that make a compelling story for me personally. But if the premise of this sounds interesting to you, I suggest reading The Humans by Matt Haig. Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This is a cozy sort of fantasy following Sophie Hatter, who's the eldest of three sisters, who's apparently destined to be the unlucky one in this world. But one day she's transformed into an old lady by the Witch of the Waste, and in the course of trying to break her curse, she meets the wizard Howl and his fire demon Calcifer in a moving castle, and they have to work together and try and get along. And this was a 4-star. This was the inspiration for the Studio Ghibli movie of the same name, Howl's Moving Castle, and they both have similar, kind of cozy, magical vibes. There are a lot of similarities between the book and the movie, but also a lot of differences, especially the farther you go on. Howl is actually kind of insufferable in this, and the plot meandered a bit and sometimes felt like it wasn't really, moving the plot forward. But I did enjoy this. I laughed out loud several times. It has a, British sound to the writing. It's not like dry humor or anything, but, it just reads particularly, if that makes sense. Worth reading, I would say, if you enjoyed the movie. This is the first in a series, actually, but I think I'm just going to read this as a standalone. Till Death Do Us Barred by Rose Black. This is a fantasy that takes place in a Dungeons and Dragons type world, and you're following a retired barbarian adventurer named Logan as he goes on a mission to rescue his husband Pi, who is a bard, as well as ending up having to sort of save the kingdom. And Logan is grumpy, Pie is sunshine, and this was 5 stars, really charming and cute. The audiobook narrator is fantastic and gave Logan this deep, gruff Scottish accent, where Pie has a very proper RP British accent, and the characters are fun. The pacing is a little inconsistent, and I don't know, like the plot wasn't perfect, but this was just a fun time. I really enjoyed it. It has cozy domestic vibes and moments, but definitely has action and adventure, and eventually, high stakes, and just a little bit of camp. A very fun, gay fantasy story. Unravel the Dusk by Elizabeth Lim. This is the second and final book in the Blood of Stars duology, and the first book is called Spin the Dawn, and it's about a girl named Maya who travels to the Emperor's palace disguised as her brother to participate in a competition to become the Emperor's tailor. And part of her quest is to sew 3 legendary dresses with the laughter of the sun, the tears of the moon, and the blood of stars. I gave this 3.5 stars. Didn't love it, sadly, as much as the first book, which I gave 5 stars, so that's kind of a bummer. It didn't have nearly as much of the romance that I enjoyed in book 1. The pacing and conflict in this just felt, I don't know, just kind of up and down, and sometimes it just, it just felt a little bit because plot, why something happened. There was some very compelling internal conflict with Maya. She's facing the consequences of a deal that she makes in book 1, and it gives this book a very desperate feel, but I don't know, it took me a while to get into this. I wish that I loved it like I loved book 1, and I wouldn't not recommend this duology, but it was a little disappointing after such a great 5-star book 1. Prince's Gambit by C.S. Pacat. This is the second book in the Captive Prince trilogy, which is an explicit adult fantasy following Prince Damon, who's been captured and sent to serve as a pleasure slave to Prince Laurent of a neighboring kingdom. And this was 4 stars, maybe like 3.75 or something. I liked it, but it's very different from the first book, which was heavy like BDSM elements and focuses on Damon's experience as a captive. This book has a lot of military troop tactics and political maneuvering. The threat of war is looming, and it still has explicit, moments and some language, but like the slow burn situation between Damon and Laurent is almost unbearably slow. I was getting a little bit irritated with how unruffled and closed off Laurent is. It wasn't particularly fun to me, and I love enemies to lovers, like true enemies to lovers, but the pace of the crossover from one to the other is like molasses here. So I did still enjoy it. I'm still enjoying the series, and I'm eager to see, how this all culminates in the third and final book. And the last thing that I finished this month was Miss Percy's Travel Guide to Welsh Moors and Feral Dragons by Quenby Olson. This is the second book in a historical fantasy series set in England that follows the adventures of Miss Mildred Percy, who's a spinster, basically resigned to just kind of live a subdued life until she inherits a dragon egg from her late uncle Forthright, which hatches into a dragon, and it's, the first one seen in the world and who knows how long. And in this book, you're following her and several others traveling through the Welsh countryside on the hunt for something. And this was a 3.5 star. I enjoy this kind of fantasy setting and writing style, which is very, verbose and proper British sounding, but I don't know, I did start to get tired of it a little bit in this book. It felt like less happened in this book than the last book, but things are definitely exciting as it goes on, and discoveries are made. The characters are very charming. It's you know, a low stakes, cozy feeling fantasy. I'm still enjoying this series overall, and will continue when the third book comes out, which should be, I think, sometime this month in August. Thank you guys so much for watching. This month, I'm basically drawing names from a jar for my book club to see who gets to pick the next book, and I picked my own name for this month, so we are all reading Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I have not read the Villains duology yet, so I'm really excited to get into that. I want to, you know, read all of the stuff that V.E. Schwab has written because she's one of my favorite authors. I haven't started reading it yet because I'm a little over halfway done reading Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. So I'm finally starting Malazan Book of the Fallen, and I'm actually enjoying it quite a lot. So I have the whole series. I bought the entire series for my fiance's birthday in July, so I own all the books in paperback. So I'm reading the first book right now, but I will get to Vicious very soon. And yeah, I hope that your summer's going well. It's been going good for me. I mean, things at work are a little bit not so great for me. It's been a little bit stressful with things going on, but it's been a good summer. I love the sunshine, love the heat. Don't love the 100-degree weather, super warm, heat warning weather, but I love summertime, and I have a couple fun trips coming up this month, so that should be fun. And yeah, I hope that you guys are having a good summer. Let me know if you've read anything particularly great, or if you're part of any book clubs. Are you the ones picking the books? Or I know that a lot of booktubers run kind of readathons and they have people vote on books. I'm super happy to have restarted doing a book club locally. I did for a while, like a few years ago, like in pandemic times, before pandemic. So I'm glad to be doing that again, and yeah, really excited to start reading books that my friends are interested in, and, you know, branching out in that way. Like Definitely Maybe is definitely not a book that I would have chosen on my own, which I think is part of the fun of book club, is reading things that you don't normally reach for. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a good reading month, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!